At some point after a breakup, the desire to sleep with someone else arrives. There is no universal timeline for how long this takes. On one occasion, the desire showed up almost immediately, winking seductively at me from a doorway. On another, I tried to force its appearance, placing the cart before the horse, only to find myself weeping into the limp arms of a disappointed and horny stranger. This time, when my ex and I broke up, it took a few months, a period I spent busying myself with logistical distractions, moving out of the house we shared, and later, packing up my halved possessions and fleeing across the country. Then, when the desire did eventually turn up, I did what was expected of me. I selected someone from an app. The man I chose told me he worked as a chef at a wine bar in Fitzroy, so I looked it up online. On the bar's account, I was able to find photos of him that weren't included in his sparse dating app profile. In one photo, he wore a navy apron and held out a plate of food for the camera, a chunk of charred meat floating in a thick beige sauce. His face held a sly grin. I found him handsome. I liked his smiling green eyes and the evidence of a sense of humour in the arrangement of his features. I spent an unreasonable amount of time zoomed in on his hands. They were pale, freckled, and a little rough. They made my stomach flutter. I've always been attracted to a man's hands. I love the way they look, and I love what they can do to me. Even though we'd never met, the chef and I fell quickly into the habit of messaging each other every day. He was consistently quick to respond, and to me, this felt strange, as if he lived behind the screen of my phone and waited to be summoned. After 4 days of unbroken dialogue, I woke up to a message that read, "Sleep well? Smiley. X." That's when I wondered if I'd done something wrong. Maybe I'd forgotten to signal early on that I didn't want to date, only the part that comes after. I wasn't interested in receiving good morning messages. I was still enjoying the pang of loss I felt when I woke up alone. I didn't want his intrusion, but I also didn't want to hurt his feelings. I frowned at my phone and began to workshop ways to subtly set expectations. That night, apropos of nothing, he sent me a photo of his dick captioned, "Free tonight?" and I laughed at myself. While I waited for him to arrive, I changed my outfit 4 times. Then I walked around my apartment, simultaneously tidying and disguising any evidence of effort. Eventually, I sat down on the couch and messaged my friend Beverly to let her know he was coming over. I included a screenshot of his account. "Be safe," she replied, and sent a string of pink love hearts. He showed up just after 11, a wine bottle in hand. "Here, this is for us. It's French from Beaujolais," he said, placing the bottle down on the kitchen bench and taking his jacket off. "I stole it from the bar." "Thanks," I said, unsure of how to respond to any part of that sentence. I was surprised by his size. He was tall and broad, and when he opened his arms to hug me, he entirely absorbed me. He smelled like grease and charcoal. I tried to imagine myself turning up to have sex with someone after working a 10-hour shift and not showering, but I couldn't. I'd showered and shaved. I'd put on makeup. I'd tidied my apartment and lit a candle. He draped his jacket over the back of my couch before wandering across the room. It occurred to me then that he was the first visitor I'd had since I moved to Melbourne after the breakup, and I realised that by being the only person who had stepped foot in my apartment, I had imbued it with a particular and very personal energy. I felt his energy spreading around, muddying the room as if he were literally tracking a pair of dirty boots across my floor. I wondered then if I genuinely wanted to do this, or if I had just relented to the pressure of this seemingly expected act of moving on. Was I exercising my freedoms as a sexually liberated fourth-wave feminist by sleeping with a stranger I'd met online? Or was I betraying my freedom by choosing to engage in a sexual experience that I was feeling increasingly apprehensive of? I wondered what he was thinking.